Maybe he just really wants one of the cardboard cutouts of himself as one of Total Energies' most successful riders at the petrol stations across France.
Welcome back to the Spin Cycle Podcast, everybody. I'm Caley Fretz. Today on the show, a slightly odd start to the classic season. Jasper won a big donkey, and the Tour de France is headed back to Greatest Britain. Let's get to it. Welcome to the show, Johnny Long. How are you this Monday?
Hello, good. Spring has sprung. Everything's looking up.
You got one of our new teas there.
I'm finally brand compliant after being asked to do this 4 months ago. So I've just got in before being told what to do.
There you
which
go.
is always key. Yeah.
Nice work. And Dane Cash, welcome.
Hey, Kelly.
You're also brand compliant. I appreciate it.
I'm always brand compliant.
Yeah.
I'm always wearing a hat or a shirt, and this time I decided to wear a shirt because the last, maybe 3 of the last 4 weeks, you and I have both worn the same hat.
That's
Yes.
true.
And
I have noticed that.
wanted to stand out a little bit.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't been wearing a cap, because we can't do 3 caps on a
Can't
podcast.
do 3
Because then
caps.
that's like an American bull sports podcast. Where why do you guys just wear caps all the time? What is it? A cultural thing?
Because I need a haircut really bad.
That is actually also usually why I'm wearing one.
So there's a scarcity of barbers in these United States.
In Durango, there actually genuinely is.
Is there?
Yeah. Well,
Interesting.
good ones anyway. We are talking a fair amount about what we look like, which obviously most listeners can't hear. But we are on YouTube now. So if anyone wants to go check us out on YouTube, the Monday show in its entirety on YouTube. You can come watch us make a podcast as opposed to just listen to us make a podcast.
Yeah, we have with facial expressions when the others say stuff, which is fun. And Caley, I've actually sent you a new background to replace the one you're currently using. If you'd like to pop that up. We already have Dane with Jasper Philipsen drinking a massive beer behind.
Oh, this is a good one.
So I've given you a good background as well.
All right, let's grab it.
This is the new part of my job description. Until both of you can
And
do.
Kelly,
set
while you're
design
doing that,
on me.
I'll, on the topic of YouTube, I'll tell the listeners or the viewers.
Oh yeah.
We've got a whole, well, it's not a new podcast. It's just back for 2025, how the race is won, and we're on YouTube now. So,
Yes.
that's what a photo.
Yep.
Maybe the best.
I'm just
photo
hanging
from
out
last
with
year.
our good friend number 1
Steward.
post-race steward. Yeah.
Rick. His name's Rick.
Rick.
We're going to talk about him later.
Yeah.
Yes, Dane, How the Race Was Won is on YouTube, and it's great.
Yeah.
You do
Thanks,
instant
Johnny.
reaction.
Yeah, we don't. You don't have to wait. Well, if the race is on Saturday, in the past you'd have to wait 2 whole days. Now you're waiting like an hour and a half, and we're talking. We've got breakdowns of all the action, and it's on YouTube. We're on the videos, which is exciting.
All right, let's get in the show. That was way too much yammering at the beginning here. We had the opening weekend of the classics over the weekend. We had Omloop at Nieuwsblad. We had Kuurne-Brussels-Kuurne. We had Omloop at Hageland on the women's side. As always, big breakdown of all the women's racing will happen over on Wheel Talk. But we're going to touch on some of it today because there's big storylines that came out of the weekend, particularly on Saturday. Let's start with Omloop. And let's start with the women's race because it was so strange. I mean, the men's race was also strange in that we had this sort of big bunch gallop that we don't normally see in Omloop. Apparently, there was a bit of a headwind that contributed to that. I think there was also some tactical issues with, like, Visma was riding oddly at times. But the odder of the 2 races was definitely the women's race. What happened?
Yeah. Well, normally, as you've pointed out, you don't get a sprint. So the fact that Escapees won isn't that odd. It's a little odd when they get, what do they have, 17 minutes at one point?
I think it was 15.
And are never brought back. It's a little odd when their riders, I mean, I don't know this. I didn't confirm this before, but I bet Lotte Kleis, who won the race, was probably like 500 to 1 going in. You're probably a very wealthy
I don't think
person.
you could bet on her.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. The unbackable non-favorite, literally unbackable. The peloton decided, or by omission didn't do anything to allow some escapees to stay clear. They ended up winning by more than 3 minutes. and the third, fourth, fifth place finishers were kind of the riders that you would have expected to win. They weren't even close, and it was this is a big race, it's a World Tour race, and they just let it go completely.
It was real odd. And so we caught like the last 30 kilometers because they switch over after the men's race wraps up. They cut over to the women's race. So we see about 30K to go. And when it turned on, they still had 9.5 minutes with 30K to go, which you just do the math on that. And you're like, the front group would have to go real slow for the peloton to be able to pull back that much time in that little distance. Now, there were things like the Muir in their way, right? Bosberg in their way, which is, you could take a couple minutes out of a breakaway going up the Muir because it's so hard. But nonetheless, the breakaway managed to stay away. And it was unquestionably, I think, an error from the peloton. Like, there's no other way to kind of describe this, is that they messed this up. So what were the explanations given? The somewhat embarrassed explanations given at the finish line for this thing.
So my favourite quote came from Lorena Wiebes, who probably would have been, well, at least SD Worx Pro Time were hoping to set her up for victory. She said at the finish, everyone looked at each other. As a result, everyone lost except the winners, which is sort of like that. On social media, I think you get like commentators saying obvious things, making obvious statements, where it's like, whoever scores the most goals will win. So it's kind of similar to that, where it's like, if everyone looks at each other and then everyone loses apart from the riders who win. But then we heard from Demi Vollering, who said during the race she'd been asking her former SD Worx teammates, what are you doing? Why aren't you helping chase? And apparently they'd had instructions from the team car to not chase because they weren't sure if Wiebes was going to hang on over the Muir. And then and apparently the SD Worx lot weren't that happy with those instructions because they were like, well, the thing is the race is going to go away from us anyway. So this is all going to be futile. And Danny Stam, who's the SD Worx manager, then added that, it wasn't up to them, as he said, to pull the chestnuts out of the fire, which is a fun way to talk about it.
Well,
and
here's my issue. Go ahead.
Sorry, one final thing. He said women's cycling has evolved. We read that everywhere, so other teams have to take the initiative. And it's like, that's kind of a weird sort of backhanded thing to say against your own sport. Didn't quite like that one.
Yeah, none of that really stands up. Like it
no, not
doesn't,
at all.
right?
No.
Because so you've got a breakaway of 4. For them to get 15 minutes, it means that nobody even put like one domestique on the front of the peloton, right? You didn't have to dedicate an entire team to keep a breakaway of 4 kind of middle of the pack riders to less than 15 minutes, right? You could have kept it to 10 or to 8. You could have sacrificed one rider. And then when you did want to turn on the gas and when you got over the Muir and Wiebes was still there and whatever else, then you could apply the rest of the pressure and the rest of the team to the front of the race. So none of this makes any sense, and none of this kind of excuses really stand up. It was just sort of this very odd, we would rather you not win, so none of us are going to win. So that's how we're going to do this whole thing. And it's just kind of embarrassing for the teams involved. You can see why the riders are probably pretty annoyed at that particular directive, if that is indeed how it went down. Because I don't think FDJ Suez is totally clean in this either, right? Like, what are they doing? I mean, they have Vollering, who ended up being the one who could make a difference on the Muir and on the Bosberg, right? So, like, what on earth are they doing back there, letting 15 minutes happen? There was sort of rumor early on that maybe radios weren't working, but based on the discussions afterward, I think it seemed to me pretty clear that the riders knew what was going on, right?
Well, you can also just get instructions from the car and pretend it's like the old days. I wouldn't be. You say
chalkboard.
You say maybe the chalkboard, the infamous chalkboard. I would say you hinted at maybe it's more about teams wanting others to not win. Do we detect that as part of the spicy season narrative between SD Worx and Vollering, where maybe tinfoil hat on, not even that much tinfoil, maybe just a regular hat. Maybe they hate each other so much that they're just like, like Vollering's already won, like 1-2 races, can't remember how many. Probably going to be in good shape for the summer of the Tour. Like SD Worx need to pull their fingers out and get some results on the board. So let's let them race after they've been kind of, beating everyone with a stick for however many past seasons. Let's let them figure it out. And they didn't.
Tactically, if you're SD Worx and you have Weebus in the group,
ride.
You want a bunch sprint. Just ride for a bunch sprint. Like, pull back every single breakaway that goes all day. That's your whole job. And then she's going to beat probably everybody else in the bunch sprint. So I don't understand what they're doing.
Well, 6-rider squad, so maybe that makes it more of an onus or not wasting team harder. But you can still, like, SD Worx riders, they're all they're 6 top riders in there, so you can sacrifice one, right? Someone would have joined, like Ellen Van Dijk from Little Trek would have joined in, maybe. But yeah,
it's also
weird.
you don't get that big of a gap unless you make this blunder of not chasing for a concerted amount of time.
Yeah,
like it's not just that the breakaway won. Like if the breakaway had won and you saw a sprinting peloton in the shot behind them, then we'd say what a great ride from the breakaway. And yeah, the peloton really screwed it up, but we wouldn't be talking about it like they need a good look in the mirror or something. But it's that they gave them 15 minutes. Like that, this was the writing was on the wall from halfway through the race that this was going to happen.
The peloton would have had to be like tapping along at 200 watts for like 2 hours to give them 15 minutes.
Right,
it's
plenty
like
of time.
It's like if I was on the front.
Yeah, yeah. Johnny was pulling the peloton. That's how they got 15
My
minutes.
bad. Did you see also that Aurelia Nerlo, who finished second behind Lotte Claes, opened sprint with 1 kilometer to go? Actually, before, I'm watching it now in GIF form, before the Flamme Rouge, like you can see them just come up to Flamme Rouge and then just like opens the sprint, and it felt like the longest sprint, and I kind of loved it. Like, obviously, you like the tension of like the cat and mouse coming up to the line, but just like this is going to be like a drag race.
I mean, something tells me she wasn't expecting at the start of the day.
Yeah.
To be doing this.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
Maybe it was just all.
Yeah.
I think she was expecting.
And did get a jump
probably,
because it was
Well,
the most unexpected sprint starting point. But yeah, I kind of like the fact that nothing really went to script in either of the races, right? Because half the time people complain about the same riders winning all the time, and then you'd have had people complaining, oh, we didn't get like, the showdown, we didn't get blah, 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 whatever. It's like,
also, we're talking about how Groupama and SD Worx are the ones who dropped the ball, right? Because of Vollering and SD Worx is SD Worx. On the flip side of that, though, is Arkea finally got a win, which is awesome.
Yeah.
This is a team that needs wins, and this is great for them. So it's not all bad. If you're Arkea, you're loving it. If you're Bianchi, you're loving it.
Yeah, it's also some interesting facts about Lotte, who's Lotte Claes. Claes, I think it's Claes.
Probably Claes. Also, I said Groupama just now on
FDJ.
Yeah, FDJ Suez. Sorry, yeah.
It is confusing. So this is mostly from Cycling Weekly, who had people on the ground there this weekend. So Lotte has only been a pro for like 2 years, and this is her first ever win. So it's a pretty good one to take as your first one. Was a nurse and duathlete before becoming like a road cyclist, and was on a Belgian Special Forces reality show like SES Who Dares Wins. I don't know what your guys' equivalent of that is.
I don't know.
We have something like that. It's like a Navy SEALs.
Yeah, like
show.
like Navy SEALs reality show. So an interesting character, and I kind of like when you have these surprise winners, and then it's like, oh, they're like this person who's done a whole lot in their life apart from just race a bike. This kind of makes it, more rounded and colourful. So
it helps. We've talked about this a little bit before. I feel like that you get that on the women's side a lot more often, where they're actually like well-rounded individuals who have interesting
Not
stories.
to say that the men's peloton is full of like, but they've been racing their bikes since they were
There are more
17.
who just race their bikes. Like, that's all they do and have done.
Let's use that as a segue, because the winner of the men's race at Omloop is actually a relatively well-rounded individual, right?
Yes.
In addition to being an enormous one, he is an enormous individual. He's like 6'4",
6'4" and 92.3 kilograms.
Ooh, he's a big boy. Yeah, I've stood in front of him in the Roubaix Velodrome and been like, wow, you are a large bicycle racer. So Soren Warrenskold wins the sprint, an odd sprint. Like, Omloop is never a sprint. It's hardly ever a sprint. And but apparently, a bit of headwind, bit of tactics, we end up with this sprint finish. Warren Scholt is also he's spoken up about human rights and some other issues, and he's kind of a vocal character within the peloton, which is why I say he's a well-rounded individual.
He spoke to us actually at the Tour in 2023, explaining about how he'd given an interview to TV2 in Norway about how he had a contract offer from UAE Team Emirates. Soren was under 23 time trial world champion. I think he'd come off a couple of good results, so had been offered that contract by UAE and turned it down because he said he wanted to make the morally and ethically right choice and not put the salary above everything else, which is, props to him. I don't, including myself, I think lots of people, if you're offered a big bag of cash, you kind of just take it and don't ask questions. And then this year he also decided to not go to the Alula Tour because he doesn't agree with Saudi Arabia either, and went to Étoile de Bessèges. So, I mean, that kind of didn't go to plan necessarily in terms of there were other sorts of, abuses against riders in that race. That's probably a bit of a poor joke. But yeah, interesting guys, speaks his mind, takes stances, which is rare in the peloton, where everyone has to kind of look out for themselves.
Dane, can we just back up a little bit, and can you just tell me how this happened? How did we end up with a bunch sprint in Omloop? Because I know this is how the race is won stuff, but for anybody who missed the live show after the race.
The reason, Caley, is go watch How the Race is Won on YouTube. Okay, next question. The reason is mostly, I would say, maybe twofold. Headwind played a role. And Alpecin de Koenig did a really good job of controlling the race when it needed to be controlled. They were on the front a lot. They were on the front at some key moments. They were on the front, and Jasper Philipsen looked really good at some key moments too. And while they were doing a good job of controlling, the teams that you would have expected to work a little harder to make it not a sprint didn't. I'm thinking of UAE mostly, because UAE had a lot of hitters in this race, and they were at the front a little bit. You saw Jonathan Narvaez put in some big surges and looked like he was in good shape, but then they just didn't really make anything happen. And I think that's it. So like Soudal Quickstep's going to set up a sprint. Not enough people are working to keep the sprint from happening. The headwind also favors the sprint. I think Visma Lease Bike maybe thought, well, it's fine to have a sprint because we have Wout van Aert, so we can win a sprint. Because they didn't do enough either, but at least, unlike UAE, they have an excuse not to try to break it up because they do have Wout van Aert. So, not a huge shock based on all the factors that it ended in a sprint. I think the big shock is that it wasn't Jasper Philipsen who won, nor was it the other guy. When the camera's looking down at the peloton as we're coming into the finish, it's like, hey, look, there's Jasper Philipsen, Paul Magnier from Soudal Quickstep, who we didn't give enough credit to in the last week's show, by the way. I mentioned him in the preview, and as I'm writing it, I'm thinking, oh, crap, I hope he doesn't win because he's not given enough respect in the pod. Anyway, and Wout van Aert, we're looking at those three coming in and thinking, it's going to be one of those three. And Warren Scholt just, stole the day and made them look silly.
Magnier is going to be really good. Is really good.
Is really good already. Yeah.
Is really
and I
good.
think Soudal has – they showed at Omloop the plan. What the plan can be, which is now that people are underestimating us, now that nobody really looks at us as so much as being this superstar classic squad of yesteryear, well, now we could just kind of let other people do the work. I mean, everything worked out perfectly for Soudal Quickstep. I think their plan was like, let everyone else make this be a sprint so that Paul Magnier can sprint. And that's exactly what happened. He didn't win the sprint, but he came close.
I mean, yeah, we were disparaging them greatly in last week's show, and maybe slightly undeserved.
We're just giving them fuel. We're doing them a solid.
That's true.
Bulletin board material.
Exactly. Yeah. Did you see Arnaud de Lie having a wholesome moment when he went for a wheel change? There was like a cute old...
I didn't see wholesome.
Oh, there was a cute old woman who was like there, very excited that, big rider, Belgian champion, had stopped where she was stood along like the 200-kilometer long course, whatever. Very excited, sort of giddy, like jumping up and down a little bit. Maybe saying some encouraging words to him, and then just before Arnaud de Lie gets back on his bike, hands her a bidon, and it's like all of her Christmases have come at once. And then she like sort of cheers him off as he gets back on the bike. Just nice. Very nice.
Love that. I love
Very
that.
wholesome.
Yeah. Imagine being a bike racing fan in Belgium for your whole life. You're watching these races zoom by, and then and what would she? I remember this moment now. She's probably like in her 60s, right? She's been watching bike racing for 40 years, 50 years, and all of a sudden, yeah, Belgian champ stops.
That's what it's all
The
about.
Walloon Bull stops to hand you a bidon.
Love it. Love it. Before we wrap up the sort of weekend's racing chat, let's talk a bit of Kuurne-Brussels-Kuurne. This is the one that's supposed to be a sprint, and well,
It
Dane,
was.
It was. Dane, I'll let you tell me about it.
Yeah, it was. I think what Alpecin wanted Omloop to be. Yeah, there was a sprint. That happens a lot at Kuurne-Brussels-Kuurne. And there's a guy in the peloton who wins a lot of sprints. His name is Jasper Philipsen. And 24 hours before, he was kind of not good. Like, he wasn't close to winning Omloop. Also, he threw his bike, like, I don't know, 3K before the line. You should watch the video. It's amazing how early he threw his
He
bike.
did. It was really far.
It was just silly.
Like, you know how
everything.
you know how there's like finish line, but there's actually other lines.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
other lines.
Yeah.
He started throwing it like before the first of the lines. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
There were a couple of sponsor logos on the road, and it was like maybe he thought one of them was my hypothesis.
That's so Jasper.
Uh-huh.
Again, go listen to how there is. So my hypothesis is that he actually was playing 4D chess, knowing that if he threw his bike really early, it might hide the fact that he just wasn't very good. So that people might say like, "Oh, he threw his bike too early," and not like, "Oh, he actually was just slow." Anyway, clearly not slow. Very next day, Kuurne-Brussels-Kuurne, everything came down to a sprint. And he bossed the sprint. And, yeah, got a great lead out. Alpecin did everything right. And this time, actually, they were rewarded by Jasper Philipsen, who took the win. So he's got...
More importantly, Jonathan Milan came from like 40th spot to 6th. So I feel like that's really that's a victory. That's a victory of sorts.
How?
You know?
So he hasn't won for a while now, has he? That's 1, 2, 3, 4 race days without a victory for Jonathan Milan, and that's not the form you want as a sprinter, especially one who's been touted as like the best this season. When you got Jasper Philipsen like top 3 in both opening weekend races, that's crazy.
Yeah, and when Vince Melissa, like Monster Energy, also has like Juan Ayuso doing really well, and Romain Gregoire. Like, it's a great weekend. So yeah, you gotta. I mean, I think if you're Milan, you gotta really be wondering what's going to happen.
The world is a crazy place, and there are people out there, and you might know them.
The U.S. Postal Service Bald Eagles have other options. Okay, so we're going to be okay.
Back in the race, Kaden Groves, Jasper Philipsen's teammate, Kaden Groves gave him a lead out, and then did the classic celebrate when he sees that his teammate has won the bike race. The new rules dictate you get a yellow card for that. So
can't be doing that.
That is super fun.
And disqualified? Is that what Kit said?
Relegated from 10th down to 57th, which he'll be obviously gutted about.
Yeah.
But that is just funny.
If that were a second division team, if it were an Alpecin, which gets plenty of UCI points, so it doesn't matter. But like if you're Arkea, man, that would be a real bummer. That's a lot of points to miss out on.
By the way, small Alpecin de Koenig update. Mathieu van der Poel is on the start list for Le Samin tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes, he said something like
not part of the original plan.
He just got a race.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got the itch.
Got the itch.
Do you think he's going to Strada?
Well, that was my follow-up. So Strada is this weekend, which is 1, exciting. 2, maybe, but probably not. I mean,
I'm going to say yeah, just in case. And if it's not right, people will have forgotten.
He's supposed to do Tirreno, right? And I think that he's going to do whatever is most likely to have him winning Flanders. And I think he probably feels like racing Tirreno is better for winning Flanders than racing Strada. That's my guess.
Yeah, probably. Sorry, just quickly back to Kaden Groves. Afterwards, Jasper Philipsen said that Kaden Groves should be in the Tour de France team. And that actually at Kuurne-Brussels-Kuurne, Kaden Groves was like one of the main like options, or like they were going to ride for him, but then wasn't feeling necessarily that good, so Philipsen stepped in and won the race. But does this mean we're going to see a Jasper Philipsen lead-out train that contains both Van der Poel and Kaden Groves at the Tour? Because that's not supposed to be how it works, I thought.
I mean, what I would love is for a team to show up and just go kind of full, not full, partial, like Mario Cipollini Seiko lead out, right? Where they just start like literally at 5K and no one can pass them for the final 5 kilometers of the entire bike race. Now, that particular team may have had some other things going on. So maybe you start at 3. But I would just love to see a team that was like, no, we're not going for other stuff. We're not going for the stage wins, blah, blah, blah. We're going to bring
8 sprinters, basically.
Yeah, the best lead out train you've ever seen and put Jasper Philipsen in the back of it.
Yeah.
I think it'd be sweet.
I think that'd be fun. The other, I mean, more important than Jasper Philipsen at KBK was the steward, Rick Boyset. I never know how you say that name.
There he is.
The same as, there he is. Rick. Let's just go Rick. I need to brush up on my Belgian names before we go there next month. Anyway, he was back, and as Cosmo Catalano pointed out, the evolution of his vehicles, his transportation, as he stewards the winners from, finish line to podium, has evolved throughout the year. New one, like, started off running, and now he's worked his way up via e-bike and scooter. He was even on the poster for KBK this year. He's now
was
on
he really?
now he's like the main dude on the poster, and he's now on a mountain e-bike, which Jasper Philipsen then rode back from the podium because I think he just thought it looked super fun. And
if this were America, this would be like he would already have a big sponsorship deal in place for the next decade.
He'd have a podcast.
Like,
yeah, he would have a podcast.
Well, that's it.
Probably
he'd have
a meme coin.
Yeah, he'd have a meme coin. I think he's basically, is he cycling's Big Dom? Without getting too deep into
it's similar
Eagles.
role, right?
It is similar role. Maybe he looks. Maybe he kind of looks a bit like that. Like is he from like Belgium's answer to New Jersey? No, not New. Or
is there
Philadelphia?
one?
I don't know.
Isn't I feel like Belgium and New Jersey are about the same size. So yeah.
Yeah, probably. The great prize as well on the podium of KBK is for the winner you get a massive, as you can see in Dane's screen, a glass of Quermont beer.
Oh, yeah.
And the donkey, the little
the big
stuffed donkey.
There's a donkey right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you'll be pleased to hear, Caley, that Wout van Aert wore his proper road helmet for the entirety of the race on Sunday.
Did we shame them into it? Did the internet shame them into it?
No, because on Saturday, he went to the mix zone before the race, Wout van Aert at Omloop, wearing a normal road helmet, then got asked a million questions only about the helmet. So he had to basically say, no, I'm going to switch out and put my time trial helmet on before the start of the race, which I guess is probably quite a depressing and embarrassing thing to admit.
It is.
Didn't work either, really.
No.
He said
Matteo Jorgensen looked the best in that team, and he had a regular helmet on.
Yeah, and then I think he was just basically... By the time Sunday rolled around, he was like, I just can't be asked to talk about this helmet anymore, so I'm just going to...
So many questions about
So basically, he got... We helped shame him out of wearing the helmet.
Well, good.
Good job, team.
We're gonna take that win,
yeah,
I think.
Let's take that W. And with that W, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, some controversy at the Tour du Rwanda. Welcome back, everybody. Tour de Rwanda. Been a fair amount of controversy coming out of Rwanda in the last couple months, and
You could say
I
that.
think, yeah, maybe. I mean, that's maybe putting it too lightly, actually. But there's also the World Championships that are supposed to be there later this year, so worth keeping an eye on. What is the latest, Johnny?
Okay, let me try and do this succinctly. Okay. Before the Tour de Rwanda, just in general, real world stuff, there's the M23 militia that's backed by the Rwandan government, sort of invading the Democratic Republic of Congo. All bad stuff. Immediately, the cycling was like, well, we're going to do the World Championships there or not? The UCI seemed quite adamant that it's going to happen. Last week, you had the European Parliament calling for cycling to not have the World Championships there, which seems like quite a high level sort of getting involved. So who knows if that's going to happen. What happened at the Tour de Rwanda probably isn't going to help necessarily, because on the final stage 7 route around Kigali, which was supposed to be sort of a dress rehearsal for the World Championships, got cancelled because the race leader, Total Energies' Fabien Duby, who was 6 seconds ahead of Eritrea's Henok Malabran, basically shut the race down. He says on behalf of the riders, basically there was like a lot of mud on the course after heavy rain in the morning. The race organisers like diverted the route or whatever, and then they came to a stop, but then decided to keep going again. And then 20 kilometers later, the wind picked up and the skies like darkened overhead again. And then Doobie came to the front of the peloton, sort of slowed everyone down, and basically the race stopped. Which he said he had riders petitioning him all day, being like, "This isn't safe. We need to stop racing." Hennock basically
mostly
said
the mud was the issue.
I think so. Yeah, and like maybe a bit of the rain. But then Hennock said afterwards, he's like, "Well, if that's basically we can't race in Europe ever again. If that's like the amount of rain that makes the race be cancelled." He said also, I think he realised that it suited him that there wasn't a result today, because I think Hennock was spicy was gonna beat him on the uphill. Unfortunately, this is Doobie's now first and only victory. So you can kind of get the sense maybe that he was a little bit desperate. The race organisers said, "We've never seen a case of like one rider stopping a race before." It's hard to tell, right? Because it's a race that happens far away. We don't get the wall-to-wall coverage of everything that happens. Doobie is going to be apparently pulled up, according to L'Equipe, he's going to be pulled up before UCI disciplinary commission to get to the bottom of exactly what happened, which is quite strong. At the end of the day, Total Energies, they've got the win. They're also not very concerned at all about Rwanda. Their boss, Jean-René Bernardeau, said that he had confidence in the strength of the Rwandan army. This was speaking before the race. He said, they're talking about more about invading others than danger in the country itself, so I've got no reason to be worried, so they've managed to come out of the Tour du Rwanda with some tone-deaf comments about a geopolitical situation and maybe probably kind of stolen an overall race victory. So it's slightly, more than slightly bad vibes. It feels bad to kind of accuse Doobie of all of this without getting all sides of the story. He was the yellow jersey in the race, so I guess a lot of the onus would fall on him to sort of put pressure on the race organisers. But at the same time, it all smells a little bit bad.
Like if it were the Tour, maybe, but like, why is the rest of the peloton doing what like some guy from Total Energies who's never won a race wants?
If only
I'm
you were there,
surprised that he's able to take that much control.
Yeah,
that there was that much respect for Doobie's decisions.
Yeah.
So this race is pretty much raced by development teams. It's raced by development teams, and there's a couple African teams. So I'm looking down the result sheet here. There's a couple young Brits actually, both of whom are on the Picnic Post NL development team.
You're immediately expecting them to step up, are you?
No. I'm saying that we should get in touch and ask them what happened.
See.
We could try to report back by the Friday show and figure out what on earth. Like, did they think it was dangerous? That would help answer the question, right?
Yeah, we could try and message them. They'll probably be like, the protocol of Picnic Post NL is that you have to submit a written interview request by carrier pigeon, and then our team will consider it.
Jacob Bush and Oliver Peace.
A couple of great names.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I'm just looking for somebody who would definitely speak English. Is basically what I'm looking like. That's really the only criteria here. Some South Africans as well. If there's anybody out there who was at this race and can give us the real lowdown, was it actually dangerous, or did this young Frenchman essentially steal a bike race victory?
The jury did make the decision, right, in the end. So there was.
Yeah, it seems quite weird to halt the race and be like, "Oh no, you're the winner," but then be like, but you know that thing you did, you're getting fined 200 Swiss francs, and we're gonna like have a whole commission about you.
Yeah, like if the jury made this decision, then how can you, in the end of the day, how can they actually blame Doobie for making that decision?
Really strange.
I'll admit I've never heard or seen much about Fabien Doobie before. If I'm judging off looks alone, he looks like a man who wouldn't steal a bike race. He looks quite pleasant, a kind face. So maybe after just like kind of basically disparaging him, maybe we give him the benefit of the doubt until the UCI has its final say that we can definitely trust and rely on.
He's 31 years old.
So we're trusting him based on being in his 30s. Do you think people get more
I'm just saying that, like I
30s?
said, this race is mostly development teams. He's racing a bunch of like 18, 19-year-olds, and he's 31. and maybe that's the other reason why he was sort of seen as a
Maybe.
Patron style figure. Right?
Ah, I see. Maybe he just really wants one of the like cardboard cutouts of himself as one of Total Energy's most successful riders at the petrol stations
Which-
across France.
That he does.
He is now that he's won a race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this segment has been full of a lot of maybes, so maybe we'll go.
Maybe.
Maybe we'll go.
Maybe.
We'll go DM some youths and ask what the full story is. And we'll
What is
keep an
not?
eye-
Yeah.
It's a weird one.
I mean, what is not a maybe is that the situation in Rwanda seems pretty bad, and it's
Yeah.
quite mad that currently we're going to be having a World Championships there. But what is not a maybe, what is a absolute, is we had another wrong turn in a bike race this weekend. Like this
Lovely.
weekend, basically everything in the bike world happened all at once, and it's all a lot, right? After famine, it's now feast.
Yep.
It was
The
at
off season is officially over. We
It's
have more-
over.
There's like our run sheet is there's 15 things we're not even going to talk about today.
Yeah,
Love
it's
it.
great.
I love it.
So the Fonadesh Classic, coming into the final, TV motorbike, supposedly too close to the riders, gets a yellow card for this because most of the riders end up going the wrong way at the like before the final turn before the finish line on a roundabout again, and then Romain Gregoire is like Filippo Ganna in the Algarve stage, right? He's just like off the front and just is like, right, start pedaling really, really hard and you're just going to win the bike race. He like kind of throws his hands up and shrugs, being like,
The
can't
TV
believe it
moto
happened
got a
again.
yellow.
Yes.
How does that work?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't even had like
You
the
can't
bandwidth to
relegate-
start
Close.
asking that question.
You can't
didn't know.
relegate a TV motorcycle.
They're fine. UCI, they're losing UCI points for this.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, like, I joke. It's actually nothing super new. Like, if you are a vehicle in the race, there's always been punishment for doing the wrong thing, right? Like, I have never had this personally happen to me, but it's not completely inconceivable, particularly in the kind of like the way that the Tour de France is run prior to the Nice terrorism attacks, where they drove a truck through the Promenade des Anglais, if you remember correctly. Prior to that, it was easier to get on and off the course as a vehicle, and so you could kind of relatively easily like get off course, have lunch on a press vehicle, and like accidentally end up in the bicycle race again. It used to happen semi-frequently, and that sort of thing would always get you in a fair amount of trouble. And usually, somebody like Fabrice, who is the sort of head media guy, would come over to you in the press room in front of everybody and basically be like, I'm going to take the stickers off your car.
Like an angry school teacher.
Yeah, so getting the stickers taken off your car is like the ultimate kind of, like
There's photographers
well,
too.
because then you can't
that often
go in
get
the
this.
race until Fabrice decides to give you your stickers back.
Yeah, you need
So
the
it's-
stickers.
You need the stickers. So this stuff has happened a while, but a yellow card is even more fun. I mean, how much fun would that be if like Fabrice
What,
just
to get a
imagine
yellow
this.
card?
Like, let's say Andrew Hood.
He's in pinstripes.
Our good friend Andrew Hood, messes something up driving. He would never do this because Hoodie's a great driver. But let's just use him as an
I don't know.
example.
He always makes me go on yellows, like on the
That's
light
true.
system, rather than me stopping.
Let's
Okay,
say
Johnny, there is a common denominator.
I shouldn't have said
here
that
in
out
the
loud.
stories you tell about driving.
Let's
and
say-
that is you.
let's say it's Ronan.
So,
Who's
Yes.
the most likely to get a yellow
Ronan.
card?
Ronan.
Ronan
sure.
would get a yellow card. So then
Ronan's a
we're
fine
in
driver.
the Tour de France press room. We're all lined up. We're head in laptop, headphones on, trying to get some work done. And Fabrice in his stripy jumper comes up and just big whistle pulls the yellow card out of his pocket, slams it down on Ronan's laptop, and goes and takes the stickers off our car.
Yeah, I can
That'd be
see it
great.
happening. I kind of want it to happen now.
Yeah.
I'd like Ronan. I feel like Ronan would react, so that would be fun.
I think that would finally tip Ronan over the edge. I think
Yeah.
he's been, coming up to this point in his life for a number of years, and I think we might finally get another fight in the press room because I missed the
Well,
last one.
year, Johnny, when you were the reason that he wasn't allowed is a strong word, but he wasn't allowed to drive for a few days for the EC crew. He was not happy.
I yellow carded him before yellow cards existed.
Yeah, but I feel like if somebody were to once again take away his, what did he say? He said something along the lines of it was like the one thing that brings him joy is driving around at the bike races. So
He's a known for his dramatics. But yeah, this wrong turn at a bike race again. This is
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
all of the
thanks for
doom and
bringing us back,
gloom about about, where cycling's at and TV stuff disappearing for certain audiences and the one cycling stuff and just cycling getting its own way. At the same time, okay, yeah, safety, it's bad for safety, but all of this stuff that's happened around these 3-4 bike races of varying actual sporting interest have actually been super interesting and had loads of talking points, loads of real life messiness to it. And was everyone else right in terms of that's what makes the sport great, is that you have Jasper Philipsen having a big beer and the steward on the scooter or thing and races maybe not going the right way and someone off the front winning and someone stealing a race in Rwanda. This is kind of, will it get old? It's not good. For me, it's not getting old yet.
No,
it won't get old. To quote our former corporate overlords, it's a yes and situation. I don't know. There are some unnamed people at Outside used to say that to me all the time. When I'd be like, how am I supposed to do this with no money? And they're like, yes, and. I'm like, that's not an answer. Anyway, so...
I'm going to try that.
So yeah, it's a yes and. It's yes, that stuff is fun, and I love it, and it's a deep part of cycling. And 2 cycling would be sweet. Right? We actually, speaking of which, I think we are expecting an update on 1 cycling this week. Not necessarily an official one, but sort of additional things are leaking out. And I don't want to say too much here because it's not confirmed in either direction, but it sounds like maybe we're not going to get. It's not going to be as big as maybe was initially discussed.
So 1.5 cycling rather than 2 cycling.
Yeah, or just half.
0.5 cycling.
Yeah, half cycling. And which is not surprising, right? We always said that without ASO, it was really hard to have a full one. So they're going to be 0.3 to 0.5 cycling somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay,
is maybe what we're looking at.
But
more on that this week.
Yeah, ASO. Look, if they're costing us 2 cycling, fine, because maybe after this next break, we're going to hear about something they've done or are potentially about to do, which is going to make me and a whole lot of other people very, very happy.
So happy. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, the tour is coming to Johnny's house. Welcome back, everybody. Johnny, you haven't been this excited about a news story in a very long time. So what's going on?
The Tour de France in 2027, according to BBC Sport, who are capital J journalists who never link back to anyone else, which is how you know they're capital J journalists, are reporting that the 2027 Tour de France Grand Depart, it's coming home. Ooh. It's coming to the United Kingdom. It's going to be wicked.
Love it. Do we know where, when, what?
Well, I didn't read this in the article the first time it came out, and neither did Kit, because Kit messaged me being like, did you see this when you first read it? I was like, I kind of skimmed it because it was 6 p.m. on a Friday night. But apparently it might be Edinburgh, which is actually Kit's house.
Ah, Kit's house.
So that Edinburgh is Scotland, technically part of the UK, blah, 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 technically the same country as me. Yeah. I am less stoked on the Scottish Grand Depart because that doesn't really feel like it's mine necessarily. It's the good people of Scotland.
Well,
but maybe
London
we'll
was
have
so
one.
Good last time.
London was good. But maybe we'll get an Edinburgh stage. They'll come down, and then we have a London one. It would just be exciting to have
do a tour of the whole UK. Why not?
Yeah, I mean it's doable. As you guys love to remind me, we're barely even a country supposedly.
No, it's not that you're barely a country. It's that you are 9 countries and 1 country at the same time. And
okay,
but also
none of the rest of us can be expected to understand this.
More just in the size of it. You always.
So when was it? Was last? It was in Yorkshire in 2014. Yes. Right.
I would take another Yorkshire.
Yeah, that was super fun. Was that the same year? Was it London separate from that?
Yeah, it was London 2007, which was the first time. Then you had Yorkshire second time, and now we're gonna have it the third time. To be honest, it's always fun to just have. I've always said the fun bit about Tour of Britain is seeing Wout van Aert go past a Greggs or a Sainsbury's. But now that you are my bicycle friends, who'll probably be coming over to the race, I can show you things like what a Wetherspoons is.
Ooh,
which would be great fun.
Yes.
When when the World Championships came to Richmond, I experienced this, Johnny, and it is really cool. It is really fun when you, because like earlier that particular year, I feel like I'd been, I don't know what race I'd been, Norway or something, and then like weeks later, the press room, all the Belgians, all the Het Nieuwsblad guys, they're suddenly like in my backyard, which is wild.
Yeah, like
And it's
we'll
really
be walking through, let's say Edinburgh. We'll be walking through Edinburgh, and I will just turn my head, and like through maybe the window of a Nando's will be Chiro from Gazzetta dello Sport eating half a chicken and peri peri chips. And it's just going to be great because it's quite separate, the cycling world, to like my normal world in my country. Like you only really see all of you guys in very specific European, like mainland European circumstances. And, you know, it feels like work, whereas it's going to be great. And I hope that look, fine if we have Edinburgh, one day in Edinburgh, but then I want a whole, like, I don't want to go to the east of England because that's where bike racing always is. And I kind of feel it's a bit boring over there. I'm not trying to, you know, alienate British listeners here, but I'm just going to try and stay stoked that it's coming home. And maybe it's what we need. You know, we can't watch the cycling on TV anymore. So then the ASO, in their infinite wisdom, are bringing cycling to us on these shores. And so we can just watch it with our real eyes. Around what? Bristol?
Yeah.
Somerset. Yeah. It's hilly. It's hilly enough for sure.
Yeah.
It's lovely around.
I'm just thinking this is a chance to market Bristol and get the ASO on board.
I'm already behind on getting my 2 cycling report out of the door to the relevant parties. So if I keep stacking these extracurricular things up on my plate, I'm just never going to get any of it done. I can't be in too many yes and situations here.
That's true. I remember the Yorkshire start. I got to do some riding. I think it was called the Côte de Butter Tubs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not what it's usually called, surprisingly.
It was a really hard climb, but it was lovely up there. Yeah.
I think, look, we have barely had, like, in terms of good news, cycling or otherwise, it feels like there's not much going around at the minute. And this feels like distinctly good news.
Particularly the UK, where the scene has had some issues.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. 100%.
So yeah, that's just fun. Maybe I'll write something this week just to explain how excited I am. I did notice, we'll talk about it after dark, but did notice that no one wrote up the news. No one thought it was significant enough on Friday. That's fine. Maybe I'll give some criticism and some honest feelings in After Dark. Maybe not. But yeah,
let's head into After Dark.
Yeah, quite a weekend of bike racing.
What incredible weekend of bike racing, and Strada Bianchi is coming up this weekend, so we will be previewing that in the Friday show. Dane, you'll be coming back for that preview.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Yeah, great.
I think. Unless we'll trade Kit in. TBD. Well, we're going to be previewing Strada regardless. Tirreno also starting, and like I said earlier in the show, Mathieu van der Poel is now lining up for Le Samin, which is this week. Is that Tuesday or Wednesday?
It is. I wrote about this. I should know. It is on Tuesday. You've got
Tuesday.
The women's and men's race.
Tuesday.
The men's race follows the women's.
It's right on the Belgian-French border. It gets some of that French cobble flavor, I would say. It's some pretty nasty cobblestones. Isn't this the race where Van der Poel broke a handlebar? It's where some handlebars have been broken.
Oh,
for sure.
That rings a bell.
Yeah. Anyway, it's worth picking up. I'm gonna pull up right now.
Oh, wait, it's on Max. It's on Eurosport. Oh, not Eurosport doesn't exist anymore. Discovery Plus and Max.
It's on Max. There
Starting at East Coast time, 7 a.m. for the women's, 8:20 for the men's.
There you go.
Yeah.
Watch it this week. It's a good one. Pull it up. And with that, we're gonna head into After Dark. If you're not already a member, escapecollective.com/member. Get yourself signed up. Get some After Dark. Get past the paywall on the website. Get Performance Process. Get bonus episodes of Geek Warning. Get all kinds of good stuff. Do it now. We're going After Dark. We'll see you Friday.